Welcome to the Modern Human, Awoke AF, with your hosts, Wendy
and Brenda. Hello.
We're so excited. We've missed you guys. We've been a little bit MIA on our podcast a little bit, partly because we were, meant to kind of incubate a little bit, cocoon, and I'm sure you all know what that's like. And when you're listening to your guides and such, you act when it's appropriate, and it's time for us to act. It's time for us to kind of hit the ground running with the podcast. We're really excited.
Part of that is the change of the format, right? We want to have a visual presence now, and kind of talk about differing things. So our new strategy is to bring through information every week from spirit, from source, to allow us to integrate with these new frequencies, these new ways of being in healthy ways.
Yeah, because it's so important as we move forward to integrate these energies, because they're pretty intense. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been feeling them out there, and kind of getting support and assistance. You know, Brenda and I have been cultivating that channel of connecting with our guides, and so we're so grateful to be able to help in that way and just share what it is that we see and what we're hearing. So it's exciting. We're excited for this new format. We really feel like it's going to be a great support for many.
We really sat in it a very long time to make sure that it really felt right for us and that it aligned with all of our new messaging and just our hearts, right? Our joy. So definitely.
And it does.
It does.
All right. So this podcast, we wanted to share, obviously, in the very beginning of 2024, we wanted to kind of talk about what that means to us and some of the information that we're getting from our guides and our entourage about what to kind of expect a little bit, and little tips and supports from them as well. So buckle in, right?
Yeah, I would argue that this one's probably really broad, obviously, in that it's covering the whole year. And as we move forward, we're going to kind of break it down in a week-to-week or month-to-month basis, depending on the messaging. I'm sure it'll be a little bit of both.
Right, we're really kind of focusing on one topic and really have a nice long discussion. And we also have other people that we're going to have involved with the podcast to kind of participate in the discussion that comes up with spirit, but everything is going to be divinely guided, meaning it's not what our brain wants to talk about. It's going to be like what spirit wants us to kind of discuss, and information from them to us and such.
Absolutely.
So let's get to it.
So 2024, kind of an overview, kind of honoring the energies on the planet right now that, for many of us, it is a new year. So we are cultivating kind of our intentions for this new beginning for all of us. We often talk about health issues or concerns, right? Wanting to get in shape or eat in a healthier way, especially after the holidays. And honoring even more of that with, who are we? Who do we choose to be? How do we choose to show up? And that to me was like part of the messaging for 2024. Wendy's obviously created this amazing painting. If you haven't seen it already, it's right behind us here.
It's on our website too, the front page, wendyandbrenda.com or theindigoforce.com.
Yeah,
it's right there if you need to kind of look at it closer.
And it really highlights everything that we're saying, in that there is a actual baby in this picture. And I think it's like your first baby that you've ever put into a painting.
For sure. Very literal.
So, very literal. This is very precious, sacred time, kind of thinking about what it means to be a newborn and be vulnerable in that way. And I feel like that's like one of the themes here is like, let's be kind, let's be gentle with ourselves. We don't get on the newborn that doesn't know how to walk yet or go to the bathroom yet, in the toilet, I mean, but just we need to be respectful of where we really are, and not judge and criticize that we don't know certain things, and judge or criticize, let's say, our early life experiences that maybe were challenging for many of us, and saying, we didn't know or didn't learn how to be the healthiest version of ourselves either, and that's okay. So kind of just embracing this. It is new. We do have help. It's time.
And part of that newness is because the new earth is here. The energies that we're experiencing, we've never experienced them before. So it is like we're brand new to this energy. And so we don't necessarily know how to navigate it. We don't necessarily know how to walk in it yet. And like Brenda said, that compassion piece for yourself and is so important. That was one of the biggest messages was like, the new earth's here now. The energy's here, dimensionally speaking. So there's going to be that polarity, meaning you're going to be able to tap into this new earth. It's here now. And then you might kind of succumb to this older earth. And I say succumb because partly in that older earth, the older energy, that three-dimensional reality, or even I'll argue and say there are fourth dimensional attributes to it as well. That's still surviving. So that's like surviving kind of thinking, actions, feelings, where we're not really functioning yet. But this new earth energy, you're operating in different ways. We're trying to figure out how to incorporate those parts of our being into this new earth, like a brand new baby.
And said a little differently, you're going to feel that like push pull back and forth, and that's very normal. That's what change looks like and feels like. It's very healthy to kind of go back and forth and try on to integrate, right? We're going to be like kind of old and new, and I'm oversimplifying it for sure because it's complex, and there are elements within us that need to be reconciled with, need to be seen, heard, validated, and loved. And that's going to be a lot of what this here is. Nothing bad is going to happen. Nothing bad is happening, and shifting our relationship with that. I wanted to say love in that, like shifting how we feel about what is coming up and really being, just kind of a little curious maybe, or open, and really standing strong in we are loved and supported and nothing bad is happening. All our needs are met. Everything is possible kind of frequency. And that's hard to do, and it takes practice, and that's okay, right? What is the infant need? What do we need in that frequency, in that space, to feel safe and secure? And I feel like that's like part of the message of your tree over here, Wendy, of like bringing in the root chakra and the sacral and the power chakra.
Yeah, for sure. Like integrating those. I feel like that's the internal work, right?
Mm-hmm.
The internal work of how we can move from surviving to thriving is doing that. But before we get into that, can we talk about the mother? Like how we.
You're asking my permission, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say no, you can't.
Well, partly because it's like you were talking about the nurturing aspect of like we need to learn how to nurture ourselves and stuff like that. And learning how to balance and harmonize our lower three chakras is important. But the mother over here, the divine mother, is holding the baby.
Yeah. See, I feel like this is like helping us know what we have to nurture, what we have to take care of.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
maybe.
No, for sure. And I agree 100%. I also feel like we're being held, in that way, energetically, we are being held. It's kind of like what Brenda was saying, like nothing bad is happening, right? As we're like kind of navigating these new waters. But we are being held, like Mother Earth, here's the divine mothers here. And so I just kind of wanted to bring in that energy of just saying, it's a part of a way bigger picture, and there's just so much love here too, right?
And so much help everywhere.
So much
and
help.
Yes, on the planet, and yes, from the feminine for sure. And in opening ourselves to that, allowing that energy to come in. So often when we connect, we kind of get the sense that spirit and our guides and our help is trying to help us more than we let it, because we're not open to the possibilities, or we don't feel safe enough to even allow ourselves. So practicing ways that make us feel at peace, like slowing down our nervous system.
For sure.
I know that that's been our messaging for years, really. It's just like you're going to want to cultivate a good practice within yourself, whether it's your physical health, your emotional health, your psychological thinking patterns. All of that we've been really looking at in the last couple of years, and they're really coming to a head now. So if there was any doubt, this year's really going to expose what's going on inside of you. And then showing up in that microcosmic space within is going to then emanate outside in the world. It's the same thing. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it really is the same frequency existing outside of us. And I feel like maybe that's where we get a little bit I don't want to say stuck. We get uncomfortable though. We get really maybe afraid. And so then fear arises to allow us the opportunity to kind of come back to ourselves of like, hey, hold on, you might be going out too much. Come back in. Like that's going to be this theme. Because some of that, or a lot of that outside of us, is really shifting and really changing. The same that's going on within us.
Outside of ourselves, that means, politically, planets, not planets, but maybe planets. But yeah, political systems, right? Countries, people,
education systems.
like there's going to be things that are arising this year that might seem very overwhelming. And you're saying, when they become overwhelming, go within, right?
And being mindful that there are conscious choices being made in the world around us that want to exploit that. And again, that's not good or bad. Just taking responsibility that there are choices being made and holding the parties involved accountable for their choices. Meaning that they're choosing to put a negative spin on something. That's a choice. We have that choice to rise out of that and accept with grace and compassion and love that everything is okay.
And I mean, that's definitely going to be a theme this year where, there are, astrologically speaking, revolutionary energies involved. And that's really just people recognizing, where boundaries are being crossed. So they're recognizing their needs, and they might be recognizing people that might be abusing powers in that way to kind of hinder their own self-expression or their right to have their basic needs met. Those kinds of things will arise this year, and that's why there's that revolutionary energy astrologically happening. But like Brenda said, it's a beautiful thing. That kind of conflict is necessary, right? Whenever we have to create boundaries, we all know this with a family member or something, it's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. and sometimes very painful and messy. And that internal, external, it's happening outside in the world too. So that's what you mean. It's like, right? Like externally it's happening and internally it's happening, and managing that. I mean, Spirit says, if it ever gets too overwhelming, dealing with things externally, like it's way out of our control, right? Or power, right? Is bringing that back in. I mean, what would you suggest if someone's, like, from a mental health perspective, overwhelmed with, emotionally, like the wars that are going on, or maybe they're in a situation where they feel they're being, somebody's abusing power.
Yeah, those are really uncomfortable and really challenging. And like always, I feel like it's going to be a unique journey for each and every one of us, and how we navigate or reconcile with those things. Allowing your being first and foremost to be at peace, like practicing that, sitting with yourself for 5 minutes or 1 minute even, allowing your being to just maybe relax, right? Surrendering to any given moment, staying in the now. I mean, I feel like there's so much help and so much messaging around that. I don't know if that's really answering your question, but that would be part of that. And I really feel that part of the imbalance in this world is that we really don't understand or know how we feel and what we think. And that's going to be an element of this year, is showing up for really what's inside of you. Because if you keep, just driving past or going through the motions or just going in that action space, you're going to miss some of the nuances, and they're going to lovingly push back. They're going to lovingly say, hey, I don't feel good here. I feel angry here. I feel frustrated. Like all of these things, which each and every one is going to be its own unique space within you. And yet noticing that is going to be the first thing. How do you feel? What do you think about these things? The theme for me really is like choices. What choices am I making? And one of the intentions I've put out is to say, thank you for help in cultivating more love in my life and ever given experience. Thank you for helping me choose love. To me, that feeling of love is that peacefulness, is that all my needs are met and everything is possible, that I am held, that I am safe. And it allows me to interact with whatever is coming up from my root and my sacral and my power chakra, which that's where we store some of these unresolved things. it allows me to present and show up as this mother to myself, right? This divine being of light that can unconditionally love and support myself and others. So I guess in that kind of answers your question of possible, like helping yourself choose love.
Yeah, and I feel like, a theme this year is there's a lot of fire energy throughout this entire year, and there's more light on the planet, and so it kind of feeds into what Brenda's talking about. Whenever there's more light on the planet, there's all this fire energy, right? What happens with lava that's ready to kind of explode? It's like it's going to rise. The light's going to kind of push things to the surface. It's going to push those darker elements of our beings to the surface within us on purpose, because it needs to be released. It's a natural process, right? It's nothing bad is happening. It's showing you your own path of what needs to be resolved or loved. You would say loved. And I feel like that's part of this fire energy and this
and as a reminder of just knowing that, we don't necessarily have to feel good about this. We don't have to
pretend.
Right. We get to just be a little bit uncomfortable. And I feel that some of the people I know who are having the easiest time in this is that they're beginning to cultivate and practice that, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And I think that that's a yoga term somewhere. I've definitely heard it before. And just, knowing that, wow, I feel really uncomfortable with this war happening on this planet right now. I do.
Yeah.
And honoring that and just holding that and knowing that doesn't align with me. And I send love to everyone involved, including myself, as the observer of it. Being in that sacred space within yourself is what this energy is pulling through. That's going to become effortless years, decades from now. And beginning the journey of shifting how we live our lives, how we show up. I mean, that's really what's happening.
Because we're so vulnerable. We've never been here before. So bringing it back to that vulnerability, it's like, you're having these feelings come to the surface or becoming overwhelmed. Really what's happening is we're very vulnerable. We don't understand. We feel like we might be getting hurt. And what are our tendencies as adults is we're going to try to get control in whatever way we can. Those are coping mechanisms, right? That's the surviving. And so whether that's happening internally or externally, right, we're all going to struggle for that kind of control. And what she's saying is like pausing and kind of choosing a different path. Instead of reacting to something in a survival-based way, is just saying, hey, I'm actually feeling very vulnerable. Like this baby. He doesn't even have clothes on. And
so we're naked.
And it's naked, and I don't even know if it's a boy or a girl, right?
Well,
I don't know. Doesn't matter. Exactly. Just that. And so just going back to that vulnerability. And that is uncomfortable. And that is uncomfortable. It can be. But it's also in that vulnerability is the only place that you can actually have access to joy, have access to your intuition. So a huge theme, and Brenda's talking about cultivating that practice, is that finding your joy, finding that place within you that's centered and aligned and maybe has peace. Because what that is a frequency. If you can hold that frequency even for yourself for a minute, and then 3 minutes and then 5 minutes, and if you start cultivating where you can, it's like a muscle, you start being able to have strength where it grows, you're actually helping the planet more that way and yourself than worrying or trying to get control or.
Yeah, and I'm being guided for whatever reason in this moment of trust to remind us all of what happens with the baby, and that the baby sleeps when it needs to sleep, the baby eats when it needs to eat. And so cultivating a reality and experience that allows for you to show up for whatever is without any judgment, right? We don't criticize the baby because it needs 12 hours or 15 hours of sleep. We don't care. But do we treat ourselves that way? And I would argue that most of us don't show up in that sacred, honoring way within every part of our being. So just cultivating that feels really important. So part of what is coming through in this very moment is just the energy, that part of being in this new frequency, and it's what's going to be happening in the next 6 years of these shifts and changes. And part of that is being able to honor whatever does arise whenever it arises. So I'm going to invite you to consider your relationship with being able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it, because that's what an infant does. And there's a lot of beliefs around that, or thoughts around that, and I would argue maybe even some judgments. And if there are judgments, again, remembering that judgments, criticisms, comparisons, and competitions do not align with the frequency of love. They do not. And if you're engaging in any form of that, you're getting yourself out of balance and probably being triggered, maybe meeting up with a trauma or a wound that needs you, or part of your thinking self is being stubborn, and that's okay. You take responsibility that that's a thought you have, a belief that you've bought into or agreed to, and shifting that within you, because it will not align with the frequency of love. So much of this is going to be practice, learning how to walk or talk in this new way. Every single part of our beings, every cell of our bodies is shifting and changing. That's how this light works. This is what we've been waiting for.
And in some ways, people are going to experience that. Even like a connection to spirit's going to be off. Like where your channel to your intuition is going to be different. Your channel to spirit is going to be a little bit different. And so every so often you're having to integrate or shift kind of to back align yourself. And that's part of this process of becoming or integrating with these higher frequencies or creating this new earth.
Right.
Is that process. You know, there's as the earth is shifting, you know, the earth is also going to go through some tumultuous things this year, as we do, like volcanoes or earthquakes, partly just adjusting. You know, it's almost like, you know, when the old adage where they say, you know, when you're sick, it gets worse before it gets better. In some ways, it's not necessarily that dramatic, but it's happening because it's necessary. Like you have a fever, that's not a bad thing. It's actually your body, you know, fighting
Right. The virus
or whatever. But right. So the earthquake or the volcano, right? That's the earth's way of kind of adjusting to the new frequency and the energy too. It's not a bad thing. It's almost like if you have a bird's eye view, it's like it's totally necessary.
Right. Which we would be able to see. And you know, for me, I access that through the feeling space. When I connect in my feeling space, which is to me my most aware parts, I can feel that everything's okay. Everything really is okay. It's when I start, you know, thinking about it because maybe I don't understand what's happening, that's where I begin to go, what's going on? And I have to remind myself, hey, you know what? I don't actually know fully what's going on. And I completely trust, right? Again, I'm making these choices within myself. And it's okay that I notice the fear coming up. I want to acknowledge it, sit in it, validate it, love it, hear it, and then say, and this is what I'm choosing. Because I get to say, my heart space with all of my parts.
Yeah, and really cultivating that sense of now, because time is shifting and everything else. Now really is the only thing that exists right now. And so bringing yourself back to now. So if you find yourself worrying or whatever, that's the past or the future, right? It's taking you away from the present moment. So that's going to be a key component to this year, is cultivating that spiritual practice time.
No, right. And worry and noticing and taking responsibility that you're in the part of your being that wants to maybe have control. Our thinking selves, I feel, have gotten so out of the balance in this world. I can't really speak for other worlds around the planet, but I would wonder, right? Because we really we've been cultivating and learning and growing here so much, and we've reached this place where I feel that the thinking self needs to step back and surrender to the wisdoms and the masteries within our beings. And I feel that for some of us, it's pushing back. It's saying, no, I know best. And this is how schools work, or this is how, I don't even know, just cultures work or whatever. Like we have
believe, very rigid or dogmatic
Right.
belief systems that are very rigid. And those are meant to change. Everything's always a constant state of change or flow, and even with belief systems, is something.
Well, especially with them. I feel like that's
systems, yeah, for sure. And obviously, with the water being a key component in the painting, it was, it's going to be an emotional year. It is going to be an emotional, fiery year. But the new baby also represents, lots of people are going to have a lot of new things happening and growing exponentially. So manifesting is at an all-time high, right? So really being mindful of those thoughts and seeding good, beautiful things that you want, or frequencies that you want, and then cultivating behavior that supports that. But newness, very new, not just energetically or spiritually, but even in a physical sense that, so what is it that you want that's new in your life or you want that's new? There's going to be a lot of new things for a lot of people, like new paths, new opportunities, partnerships, relationship changes.
Yep.
But the other flip side of that is, things ending, right? Meaning you are leaving this job to go to the other. But obviously Spirit wants us to focus in on all the new stuff and kind of letting the past go. But there is that process of grieving. So honoring if that is arising for you, because you are ending things, allowing that to come to the surface. It's going to come to the surface regardless if that's part of your process.
Yes, it is.
And it's more important, like how we integrate. And I feel like that's what that tree is, right?
Yeah, and for me, like up here, we didn't really even talk about this in our other classes, but just like the magic that's kind of overlaying everything, and I feel like that's a really important part. And I use that word because I feel like there's so much going on that I don't understand yet, and I'm looking forward to integrating with it, understanding it more, really understanding it truly, so that I can move in that energy of what I don't know. And that's, it can be very scary for a human being because we want to know, and there's so much more going on that we are not aware of. I mean, we're aware of this little microcosm of like things. And I feel like when I sit within myself, my being is like, there's so much you don't understand. Like, what do you think you know? Like, I almost like laughing with me about, very
limited.
This tiny little bit. There's so much more. I'm like, oh, okay, I have a lot of feelings about that, and that's okay. And I surrender and I let go and I practice and cultivate. And I feel like that's coming through more and more. Wendy and I were talking about going for a walk the other night. It was like a week or two ago, and we were noticing so many colors. It was nighttime, so it wasn't like it was flowers or whatever. It was like energy light.
It's in Chicago.
Yes.
So it was very cold,
very gray. But it was dark out. We couldn't even like really see.
No, it was pitch black out.
It was very beautiful. But there were so many new colors that we had never seen, just lighting up everywhere. It was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this. And we've been told for years that color was coming to the planet, and we felt like that was part of that. Like, oh my gosh, yes, there it is.
Yeah, it's like a different experience of color,
Yeah, it's really neat.
And I feel like it also is prophesizing a time, or it was prophesized, of the rainbow people coming. And the Native Americans, they prophesized the rainbow people were coming. And the last year especially, we've been getting rainbows and rainbows and rainbows, because now is the time. It's like, we're here. And I feel like that was always like a pun on things, because back then especially, we're still thought in such linear ways, thinking it was going to actually be a tribe of people that just kind of showed up and is going to save it. But we're the rainbow people. We're all the rainbow people.
Right.
It's more about moving into this frequency of new earth and having that kind of consciousness, being able to tap into it and kind of help lead the way and kind of be the forerunners of this new way. Right? Wouldn't you say?
For sure.
But in that energy, I feel like the biggest thing for me this year in this painting, we're at the end of a 7-year cycle, right? Everyone's telling you that if you're in this, if you like all this stuff, you're listening to all this stuff, not just from us. We're at the end of a 7-year cycle. So that was always going to be like the precipice or this climax of this big, huge change, which means it was going to be this huge juxtaposition or polarity of dark and light. It was going to happen this year, right? For those of you that did not. So to me, in my humanness, I was like, my God, that sounds kind of frightening and terrible. And what's going to happen? And, you know, just in my own stuff, where I had to really let go of some of those. I had to let go of all of that. And I just painted, right? Because I channeled what to expect for 2024. That's what this painting is. And in that space, I'm very, very open. And it came out very beautiful. And there's no huge war, right? Like if I was painting for my brain, it would have been like this, you know, I don't know, dark and light and, you know, I don't know, conflict or whatever. I don't even know. But, you know, when I'm painting with my heart, it really is seeing it in such a different way. And I feel like that's part of the messages this year is like, be surprised, be open to surprises, be open to this miracle energy. It's so we've never been here before. So to literally lay on it expectations of old belief systems of like, nope, we're almost World War III. This is totally, we're on this track. It's like, you don't know that, shut up, you know, like just stay open. You don't know, send things love. If you don't like that, send it love, shift the frequency. And that's what part of those things are up there. And, right, like being surprised. And I feel like even for yourself personally, not necessarily having the expectation for like with the world, but even with yourself, be open. Like, hey, I don't necessarily know how it's going to happen, but I'm open to it happening. This is great. And staying in that frequency of this joy, right? And this vulnerability.
Yeah. For me, you know, when I watch the news, because I like to be aware and I don't always like watching the media, I feel like the media is making some negative choices lately. And I get really uncomfortable and I need to heal that or reconcile that within me. And so then I show up for how I feel and what I think about it. And then I think about how I would want it to be. And then I imagine how I would want it to be. And then I feel how I would want it to be. And for me, I'm very cheesy. My kids would call me cringy because I would imagine, and I like to see everybody hugging each other and appreciating each other and seeing the authentic parts of people. So like seeing, hearing, feeling each other and loving each other in that. Be like, I love how different you are from me. Like I imagine that and I sit in that and I do that and I notice, oh, I'm okay with this. This is okay. Because I'm making a choice within my being of what I would like to happen, how I see this resolving itself, how we might learn and grow from these experiences and these conflicts. And that helps me reconcile with it because it can be very uncomfortable. And I do that within my personal life too. I do that within the parts of me that feel so afraid, let's say. You know, I do the same kind of thing. What do I need? What do I feel? And I show up.
Yeah, and that is a practice. Like it does take time to figure out how to do that, navigate that. And that's partly why we have our retreats, right? We kind of walk people through that process.
Sure.
And how to kind of get those tools, you know, and to not be triggered or even what triggers are, and right? Because you're so masterful.
We're all going to be triggered. We're never going to avoid that or not have that. Those are the parts of us.
Those are those learning
gifts. Right.
Those are the
being able to like surrender to the journey with joy and grace and love and peace. That's
not ignoring if she is showing up, if there's a part of her that's afraid, right? Like she's not pushing that down. She's kind of like bringing it to the surface and rocking it, like she's rocking this baby, right? Yeah. But you know, we walk people through that process.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tricky process, don't you think? It's kind of complex.
Well, and it's unique, right? That's
everyone's
the way that works for me, and everyone's a little bit different. So we need to figure out the way that works for us, what feels good for us.
Yeah.
And how we can reconcile with those. Feel that.
For sure. So another message just is like, you know, intuition is totally expanding this year. Your gifts are, you know, part of this tree is about, you know, the tree of life. So it's about this wisdom and knowledge that we're participating in this great awakening. We all are, no matter what your part is, whether you're conscious of it or not, we're all part of this. This is like the movie is this representative of the tree here. But it also is representative of your own personal purpose, you know, so there's two individuals here in this painting, which is rare for me. And so connection and like community are huge components in this year's energy. Meaning, we have been priding ourselves, especially in America, to be autonomous and be individual and not need anybody. And that really is kind of loosening its grip, and we're recognizing that we do need each other, and we're meant to expand and having to work with each other, even in this vulnerable way. I mean, these two individuals in the painting, right? There's a vulnerability here for both people, maybe, so community and connection. And
I'm gonna
that's,
see a lot more of that.
Yeah. And it goes hand in hand with your purpose. So kind of like whatever your purpose is going to be tied into your joy. So figuring out even if it's knitting mittens, right? Then you might want to knit mittens for your community, right? Or, share that with other people, other knitters or whatever. It doesn't have to be like everyone's going to go change the world in a similar way that maybe we're doing. You're going to find your own, or maybe, but you're going to find your own, the things that bring you joy, and it's just sharing them.
And everything helps. Like, we're in this together, truly. Being nice to the person in the grocery store.
Yeah.
It spreads so much more joy and love than you realize. And maybe you do realize you can feel that. And that's even better.
It just feels better.
It does. Every
judging
little thing
every
it
single
shifts.
thing around us.
Exactly.
That's for me. Judgment, but yeah. We're built that way. We're built to criticize and judge,
And there's no judgment of that.
don't judge the judger.
Don't judge
That's
the
what Anton would say.
Exactly. This has been going on for thousands of years. We've been taught these things. We're programmed in this way, and it's going to take some practice. And we have the space to practice. We have as much time as we need. I feel like that's the baby again. Like, just show up and practice. You don't have to hold on to it or worry about it. Let go. Be like, oh, I just messed up again. Okay. No big deal. We don't have to take ourselves so seriously, maybe. It's okay. Everything's working out.
Everything is working out. And it's kind of a very exciting time, and there's a lot of nuances. And part of this is like, we can't prophesize the entire year, because this being in the now and kind of cultivating the now is really the only game in town anymore. Can't control or plan. So that's partly why we're starting to do this new format, where we're saying every month we're going to create a new painting, which I already do, but now we're going to break it down into a weekly format, because there's so many nuances of like, how do you find your joy if you don't feel safe, or how do you cultivate abundance if, right, your throat chakra or your whatever. There's so many nuances.
And some of that is based on the choices that we make, because we're making choices in this moment to cultivate what the next moment creates for us, sure. Right? Like, this is how we create, and we are master creators. So, just slowing down a little bit to take responsibility for what choices we're making, and the world too. So we're going to see, like, some of these are potentials. Here we go.
In this moment, we perpetuate the next. So, that's partly why there's so many seeds over here. So what are you putting your seeds in? This very fertile soil. It's like Jack and the Beanstalk soil.
Yeah.
Like, you put it in and it's like, it's growing.
100 feet tall. Yep.
Within a
That's
minute.
What you can do.
You know.
And that's what being nice to somebody at the grocery store that you don't even know, just to make that choice. And it's powerful. It's so powerful. And it grows these things that you want. You do. They feel so good.
Yeah, for sure. So, being kind and gentle with yourself this year, and sending seeds of love and joy wherever you can. There's going to be lots of changes for everybody in unexpected ways. So kind of holding onto your hats. And
or not. You can also let them go, right? I love the energy of just like surrendering, right? I think I said surrender in our class a lot. It was like all about this letting go, surrender to what is. Everything's okay. If you can surrender, you're not enmeshed in that push-pull that you are going to notice. It is going to be there. Remember this feeling that we're bringing through right now in this moment. Let go. And believe me, your psyche, your ego is going to be like, what? I'm not letting go. And that makes sense. And we honor that. And we surrender to it. We go, yeah, I know. Like, letting go, that seems like the worst. Like, I might drown.
Counterintuitive.
Oh, yes. And yet, The minute that you let go, and yes, you might be afraid in that moment, that's okay too. And you really let go authentically in your whole being, surrender, you go, oh, there I go. Because you will naturally move yourself into balance. It's healing yourself. It's wholeness. So thank you for listening. Thank you for exploring 2024. We can't wait to explore it for the rest of the year with you.
Yeah.
As I know it's going to shift and change a little bit more even.
For sure. And we're going to be doing an event virtually and in person every month. Our next one is next week, next Thursday at 6:30. So you can join us virtually or in person, like I said, where we're going to share new messages from the universe that's not about 2024. That's going to be relevant to that time. And then new paintings being created for that as well.
It already looks really cool.
And it does look really cool. Just more key pieces to integrating and moving into this higher frequency.
Right.
So I'm excited.
Me too.
All right, until next time, guys.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.